G'day guys, Jules20 here and welcome back to City Skylines Miami. Today we're going to be continuing work fleshing out some of the suburbs that sit around this area that we started developing in the last episode. So we're still going to be plopping down buildings, we're not really up to the zoning stage just yet, and I'm really just trying to focus on developing out a lot of these areas so that we got some residents and we're getting a bit of the city starting to take shape, because I feel like, you know, as much as I like starting new projects, it's always, there's always like 5 or so episodes where I'm like, you know, don't exactly have a city together. There's like, you know, the suburbs represent something that looks like a big city, but they're only like one small little portion. So I don't know, it's like a weird limbo stage where you enjoy starting the project, and you can see in the future what it's going to look like, but it currently just looks like a bit crap. So I just want to push through these parts and start fleshing out this area so that we got a little bit of a city to start focusing on, and over the next couple of episodes you'll start seeing everything start to take shape. So it's a short episode and we're mostly just going to be fleshing out all of these areas, and then in a couple of episodes time then I feel like it's going to start really starting to take shape, which I am super excited for. So continuing work on some of these suburbs. So these suburbs are like full of very big luxurious mansions. These ones are all plopped down because I wanted them to look as if they were, you know, all like a higher level. They all were, you know, sitting on quite larger property, all based on areas within Miami. Although I think that I'm placing down houses that are much larger than the sort of houses that you typically see on these sort of islandy esque areas in Miami. I don't really know how else to describe them, but they're like these man-made lakes, and I sort of just wanted to recreate something like that around this area. Although there won't be, you know, not every suburb in this project will look like this, just the ones that are around here, and I dare say there will be a few more areas that look like this too. And now I'm starting to work on some of the hotels slash apartments, and this was a lot trickier than I had anticipated. I really just sort of imagined that I'd just be able to place a couple of these down and, you know, not have to splice any buildings together or, you know, go to too much work in terms of trying to make these fit all together. But this was a little bit challenging, mostly because the color scheme wasn't really syncing up. So I am changing the color using the Paint It mod, and I am using Move It, of course, to move the buildings closer together and plot the growables, all those good old mods that help us to create much more realistic looking cities. But what I'm trying to do is make them a little bit bigger than they are in the game, because in the game they're all like, you know, the biggest one you can get is 4x4, and that's just not big enough when it comes to trying to create something that's a little bit more realistic. Taking a lot of ideas from a lot of the apartments and hotels that sit on Miami Beach in a very similar location, to be honest. I was trying really hard to make them look similar because they are, you know, quite iconic in this area, and they are just massive hotels, massive apartments. But yeah, the game just doesn't really allow you to plop down anything bigger than 4x4 in terms of the growables. Unfortunately, you know, it would have been nice to have like a DLC that was sort of focused on some bigger hotels or something like that. But no, we've just got these ones to play with. Of course, if I was to go into the workshop, I would have been able to find something. But, you know, we're avoiding the workshop in this series. I'm trying really hard not to go in there. Yeah, that's not even an option. But I think, you know, what happens is I get really close to the ground while I'm plopping these down and like splicing them together and trying to make them work. And I'm thinking, nah, this isn't working, these look terrible. But then when you zoom out, that's when they really come to life, which is something different, you know, because usually I work on, you know, usually I only like achieve like 4 or so blocks in any of my other projects. Whereas in this series, I, you know, I can achieve a lot within a much shorter time frame, and you know, what I'm doing close up might not look that realistic, but then when you zoom out, they turn out quite alright. So I'm just trying to give a bit more of like false perspective when it comes to like how big a property these hotels sit on by using the trees just to like drag out some barriers between them. Rather than using fences, I thought the trees would work better, just making this whole area look a lot nicer. And the pools, I think, add a lot just by placing the pools down. Not trying to get too hung up on where the pools actually sit, because, you know, some of them are, you know, not surrounded by any pavement or any props like seats or benches and lights and stuff. I'm just going, you know what, just place them down and see what it looks like. And then when you zoom out, it looks pretty decent, which you can probably see right now. So that whole area, it's dedicated to hotels and some commercial districts. Which is like the first. Oh no, we've got a little bit of commercial already, but yeah, you'll notice that like we got a huge demand for commercial and for industry at this stage. A lot of residential going in, and there'll be more residential in the next episode too. And we'll end up getting to trying to, you know, increase the industry and the commercial as well. But I think we're probably going to, rather than having like a lot of industry in this series, we're going to probably have more office spaces, because I think that downtown is going to be just full of office areas, and I'm hoping that should quench the thirst of the industry, because I don't really want to do too much industry in this map. Although, you know, we will obviously have some areas like Dodge Island will be like a massive spot for industry and for cargo coming in and out. And I dare say we'll have some more on the fringe of the city too, but we'll just see how things pan out, I guess. So this whole area is like fairly affluent, very nice looking, you know, couple of suburbs of Miami. It's really tricky trying to figure out what to call, how to reference the city, because I am just calling it Miami, even though it's, you know, I'm taking inspiration from Miami, but the layout is completely different. Although I guess down there it says Las Palmas, which is kind of funny because my Border Town series was Las Palmas. So yeah, unfortunately that's kind of a little bit too close for my liking, so I can't really call it that. So we'll just keep on calling it Miami, and you guys will just have to know what I'm talking about. I also mentioned in the last episode, I've mentioned it, but I forgot to talk about it. But yeah, the mods that I am using this series are very, very basic, and you can actually find the mod collection for it in the description below. Pretty much the main mods that I am using are Move It, Plop the Growables, no abandonment mod, no fires, because obviously I don't really want to watch my whole city burn to the ground or become abandoned after I've got all this work building it. What else do I have? I don't know. I've got a few more that are pretty damn essential. I'm also using extra landscape tools, and that one where you can create, I can never, like surface painter or something like that. That's like one of the oldest mods ever, but you know, quite essential these days. Forest brush tool as well is something I'm also using. But all these sort of mods you can actually create, well, most of those mods you can create the same effect just by playing the vanilla game, but why would you? These mods like add nothing to the performance of the game, and they add so much to the actual functionality. So highly suggest you just go and grab some mods. They're pretty much my barest essentials. And then like a whole bunch of the other mods that I'm using are graphic enhancing mods. So yeah, I don't feel like I don't really need to talk about them. I think Prez does the best job at discussing how to make your city look the best it possibly can, and yeah, I highly suggest you go and check out his tutorial on that. But yeah, that's mostly just so it looks much prettier, and absolutely no regrets, because the base game just does not look quite as pretty as it does when you have all these graphic settings. Okay, I've just completely skipped past the fact that I built my very first golf course. I plan to build a few of these. Something that you'll also see me do is I create that into a park. So that is something that I'm going to be implementing throughout this city, because I am also trying to make sure that all my residents are happy with where they are living. So land value is quite important, and I'm going to make sure I'm plopping down enough services. And there are things that I plan to do more in live plays at the end of each episode, is just sort of like check the statistics of each of the suburbs that I'm building and the areas. And I think that's sort of best targeted in the live play. So that's sort of what you can imagine for at the end of each of my episodes, is sort of making sure my services and you know, land value and everything sort of function in the way it should do. Whereas these time lapses is me like building out these whole areas. Though this episode does not have a live play, because I just do yeah, I feel like I'm just building in this episode. I just want to build and get the city sort of happening before really getting into any sort of live play, or yeah, I think that's the most essential part at the moment. So all the hotels are finished. I've now created my golf club, my golf course, and now I'm just starting to terraform and improve this landscape for the entrance of this riverway. And this turns out like fairly decent. It yeah, obviously if I had, you know, much nicer rocks to play with, or like break walls and stuff like that, it would be so much better. But I think just using the vanilla rocks, they worked fine. They were just fine. But what I'm doing is I'm actually dragging out a path out in this direction so that it creates a nice couple of nice points. These break walls, I guess they're called. And I wanted the beach to be around here too, so I do a bit of a terraforming to make sure that the beach is like coming out this far out. And so the idea behind it is to create like a bit of a ledge, these break walls for later on when I then place down the rocks. And it's a technique that I think I'll probably use in other areas and probably extend it into other of my series, because it just works like pretty seamlessly. And I'm just really glad that these rocks don't clash with the water. There's no weird glitches, because some of the vanilla rocks, not woks, vanilla rocks, they're not that, they don't function that well with water. So, you know, at least this works just fine. And because I was playing with the rocks and thought that it was working, you know, just creating a little bit more realism around here, I thought I might just drag out these rocks and create a bit of a break wall for, or like a bit of a rock wall for the rest of this whole area. And yeah, I thought that was fine. That's just fine. There's a lot of that'll do in this series as I try to create something realistic, not using, trying to like be, you know, pretty much, I'm not spending heaps and heaps of time on trying to create this detail. Just like, this'll do, let's just see how this works. And then if it's not perfect, then I'm just like, stuff it, let's just move on, because we've got a lot to build, and I'm just like powering through these areas. Now I'm starting to work on the oceanfront beach area, which is an area that is going to be a little more detailed than other spots, because it's going to feature quite a lot in this city, because there's going to be a lot of action around the beaches. So I wanted to make sure that it looks somewhat decent. And I thought that this would be a really nice spot for a park. And I'm taking inspiration again from Miami Beach. There's actually a whole bunch of these like hotels that sit around here instead, but I sort of like the idea that there's like this park around this spot. And because I guess it would be attracting a lot of people around here, I thought that this would be a good spot for just a little bit more of the like touristic commercial areas like cafes and clubs and stuff like that. So I just placed down a couple of them, and just putting a little bit of detail work by placing down some benches and some play equipment and things like that. And that's like the extent of the detail I think I'll be placing down most of these areas, except for like some particular spots where I'm sure I'll probably, you know, amp it up a little bit. But do let me know what you think, and if you you know, if you have any suggestions for areas I should consider building in Miami. I've never been to Miami, and I have only really been flying over it in Google Earth. So I would love your ideas if you have any suggestions about places that I should definitely build in when I do get to those areas. And if you have any suggestions for parts of the DLC that you want me to like include, we haven't really included anything as part of the Sunset Harbor DLC just yet, but we will be getting there. I think next episode we'll probably end up placing down the water treatment facility, which yeah, I think it's quite a nice looking facility, and I think it's going to fit in really well. There's actually the best spots. I've got a really good idea for whereabouts to place it, so I'm looking forward to using that. And I'm also keen to see some of the helicopters flying around too, so yeah, I think that'd be pretty sweet. It is a damn shame though that that they didn't include like some recreation areas like marinas and like seeing boats and speedboats, and you know, it's a bit of a shame that it's just limited to the fishing vessels that get you know, that drive around the waterways. It would have been really cool to see some other types of boats going around, but you know, oh well, what can you do? But guys, that is pretty much it for this episode. A bit of a short one, apologies, but it is a bit of an essential one as we sort of flesh out this area and make it a little bit more lively. I want to give a special shout out to some of my patrons like Samuel Liu, Daniel Borst, and Diego Esfedo. Oh my god, I am just completely ruining all my patrons' names. Apologies, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. Much appreciated, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.